Good morning. My name is Adrian Monk. I am Managing Director of Public Engagement with the World Economic Forum, and welcome to this opening press conference for our 13th annual meeting of the new champions here in Dalian in the People's Republic of China. I'm delighted to have with me our 8 co-chairs for this meeting. Just to introduce them very quickly, we have Minister Belhoul Falasi, Minister of State for Higher Education and Advanced Skills from the United Arab Emirates. We have Jessica Tan, co-CEO of Ping An Group and the Chairman of Ping An Technology. Alain Dehaze, Chief Executive Officer of Adecco Group. We have Chairman Ning Gaoning from Sinochem Group. Flemming Besenbacher, Chairman of the Supervisory Board at Carlsberg. We have Enass Abo-Hamed, Fellow of Imperial College London and a young scientist at the World Economic Forum. We also have Supachai Chiravanont, Chief Executive Officer of Charoen Pophand CP Group, and Charles Lee, the Chief Executive Officer of the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing. So we have a fantastic group of co-chairs. You'll be able to see them one-on-one in sessions throughout the program, where they'll be sharing their experiences on leadership. But before I go any further, I want to kick off and hear from each of them. We have a packed panel, and we're going to try and make sure that we have time for questions at the end, which is my quick way of reminding all our fantastic co-chairs that we're trying to squeeze as much into as small a space as possible. So without further ado, Minister, I'm going to turn to you and ask you what your expectations are for this meeting over the next few days. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. So first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. It's my first time at Dalian. Very impressed with the impeccable organization. When I was offered the role of co-chair, it didn't take much convincing to accept it, mostly because WEF represents a platform where you connect minds from different people, discuss issues that are truly global, and also because the United Arab Emirates is a truly global country. We host more than 200 nationalities. And we have, a lot of companies that are going very international, like Emirates Airlines, Jebel Ali Port. So it really is in our DNA. We do have a long-standing relationship with WEF. We just established the 4th Industrial Revolution Center in Dubai. And we like to think of ourselves as champions for the World Economic Forum in the MENA region. We do have a lot of collaborations with different countries. My expectations for this specific event is to collaborate on technology. I do have some views when it comes to education and technology, given my background. But I also chair the space agency, and there we're trying to maximize the value of education and see also how it transcends into various other sectors. Again, globalization is a key topic for this conference, and very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. Jessica, can I turn to you from Ping An Group?
Absolutely. So hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jessica Tan from Ping An Group. And I would like to urge basically everyone who's going to be at the conference for the next 3 days to think really about how technology can transform even more the industries and markets that we're in. I would argue that every one of us here as consumers would have no doubt that technology has completely changed our lives, even in the past 10 years. I mean, look at the mobile smartphone, which most of us would not live. I'd rather lose my wallet than my smartphone. And this only came to existence 12 years ago, right? Our lives are completely different. But I would argue that a lot of the sectors that we're in, we're still grappling with the same old processes and issues that have plagued us for decades. Right, and as Ping An, we're an insurance company. You can't get more traditional than that. I think for the past 10 years, we've devoted ourselves to really think about how technology can transform not just us, but the rest of industries. And I'll give 2 examples as food for thought. Right, one, I think in financial services, SME financing is a problem that has plagued all of us across the markets, right? And because there's a lack of information, and therefore you don't get as easy and cheap access, affordable access to credit, right? We built a blockchain platform last year with 5 million SMEs, whereby they offer real-time their trade data, their transaction data, finance data, CRM data, to share with the financial services, so in exchange for easy and 20 to 30% cheaper access to finance. I think this is where technology can really fundamentally solve some of the problems that's plagued us for decades, solving the information asymmetry. I'll give another example in healthcare. All of us from whatever countries that we're in, there are 80 countries here, we always struggle with a lack of doctors. No amount of doctors is enough, right? In China, we have 1.4 billion people. We only have 3 million doctors. So what we've started doing about 10 years ago is really using AI to train clinical decision support systems as tools to help the doctors. Right? So it's not to replace the doctor, but you can help them because they are trained with the best doctors in real-life cases. And that has dramatic impact, right? If you look at the level of general practitioner here, the level of consistency that they adhere to a certain treatment is less than 60% in many of the cities. With this, they can go over 90%, right? And I think this is, again, one of the impact that can dramatically transform a healthcare industry. And so with that, I hope that this is a very rare occasion devoted to this. I hope that everyone will share a lot more and take away ideas so that we can go back to our respective companies and industries and markets and hopefully scale technology innovation in sectors much more. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Alain, Adecco Group, the leadership's kind of in your DNA, isn't it, I suppose?
Yes, good morning to everybody and happy to be here. Happy to be here because our company is really committed to improve the state of the world. And more specifically, the purpose of the Adecco Group is to make the future work for everyone. And we know that there are a lot of opportunities, especially with technology, with innovation, with new ideas present here. But there is also a challenge to synchronize this transformation between the people who are losing their capabilities in need, and especially to synchronize the reskilling towards the new capabilities needed by this new world. So I have for the next 3 days just 2 key messages. The first one is, let's stop the lifelong talking and let's go to lifelong learning. There have been a lot of talk at government level, at company level, at employee level about reskilling. And it is really hard time to become concrete. So it is really a call to action to governments, to companies, and to employees to really start this upskilling and reskilling project in order to have a future working for everyone. And the second message is the need of the new social contract. The economy is changing. If I take the example of the US, 47% of the new graduates are entering the labor market as a freelance. But unfortunately, like in the US and in many markets, the framework is not there to support them into their working life. And that's why we request a new social contract, taking into account this new reality, especially the new reality of the freelance market.
Alain, thank you very much. Chairman Ning, can I turn to you for your thoughts for this meeting?
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to join this forum. I come from a manufacturing and industrial company. I want to learn and share with you on how this manufacturing sector is transforming itself. So I want to quote an example right here in Dalian, only 20 miles away from here. There is a modern and a big-scale new refinery has opened only a few months ago, which is a refinery by far the largest in volume, not only petrochemical refinery, also in downstream like ethylene and PX or PTA, other chemical products, transforming themselves from refinery to a complete petrochemical company. Science is number one. Secondly is the technology. Technology, on refinery, we're starting from so-called efficiency, cost cutting, and then we got this whole automation. Today, a lot of artificial intelligence technology being used. You can see a refinery built on a large scale with a sophisticated AI technology to achieve optimum results automatically, much smarter than human brain. So I hope we can share the information and views on how this manufacturing business is being transformed in a large scale, which will affect all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Flemming from Carlsberg, can I just ask you for your thoughts and hopes for this meeting?
Good morning, and I'm very pleased to be back in Dalian here, and also to be very pleased to be back in China. One of the topics which is very close to my heart is actually shifting from a linear economy to a circular economy in our globe today. We are faced with huge challenges, climate change, environmental change, and so forth here. And the linear economy has served us very well, created a lot of wealth in our society, taking resources, produced, consumed, and create a lot of waste. It's actually so that if all people on the globe were living as we're doing in Denmark, it actually requires 4 globes of resources, and that can obviously not continue on. There's something called the World Overshoot Day, and that's the day where we, 7 billion people on the globe, is actually using more resources than we regenerate in 1 year. And last year, this date was 1st of August, and it's moving further and further ahead. And therefore, we really have to shift from a linear to a more circular economy, where we keep the resources in a closed cycle. And in my opinion, there's 4 R's which are very important within the circular economy, and that's reduce, reuse, recycle, and rethink. And that's actually something which is very important here. It requires many things. It requires leadership. It requires responsible thinking. It also requires a lot of new innovation and entrepreneurship, actually, to develop new technologies to keep these resources in a closed circle here. And therefore, rethink is very important. And therefore, I think this meeting here is very important. Rethink in the way of leadership, with a more sustainable leadership going forward here, trying to integrate this circular economy in our thinking, both in businesses, but also in municipalities on the state level here. And finally, I think actually for many of the great young people, which are also here in Dalian, trying to come up with a new solution, how we can actually consider waste as a new resource for the manufacturing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's a great introduction into Enass. Enass, can you share your hopes and expectations for the meeting?
Good morning, everyone, and congratulations on putting together such a wonderful meeting with a lot of impact that we all expect to come out of this meeting. So I run a clean tech energy company. We harness renewable energy and store that in the form of hydrogen. And that's a zero-emission solution that we hope to scale and introduce to millions around the world, especially in order to solve energy poverty issues in the developing world, where 1.2 billion people as of today don't have access to power. My message for this meeting is to look for a new type of leaders, a new breed of leaders that we don't have many examples as of today for. And that is because my generation have inherited critical problems like climate change, water shortages, migration and immigrants crisis. All these problems we have to solve, and they haven't been solved yet. My suggestion to this meeting is to try and look and build for leaders who can think like scientists and act like entrepreneurs. And by think like scientists, I mean leaders who look for evidence before they make decisions. And by act like entrepreneurs, I mean leaders who sees gaps in processes and systems, act on them, introduce change in the form of innovation, create opportunities with the hustle and agility of an entrepreneur, and fix systems, scale solutions. These are the type of leaders that will bring hope to solving our problems. And I represent the young scientist community of the World Economic Forum. It's an exceptional community in terms of the nature of the members of the community. They're all actionists and not activists. They all go into the lab and do the type of research that would really solve critical problems that we face, like fixing climate change, look at problems like obesity, mental health, curing cancers, and many other problems. This is the type of unharnessed power that we haven't looked to today. And we really need to turn to the scientific community and bring more scientists into the decision-making table to solve our problems. And hopefully, this type of leadership in a new era of globalization is going to bring a lot of hope for a better industry and a better global community.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And we're also running in parallel with this meeting our Young Global Leaders Summit for leaders in their 30s. So we have some 200 young global leaders here. And also we have our 20-something global shapers. So if you have a chance to meet any of those around the meeting, please take the opportunity. Supachai, can I just turn to you?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really pleased to be here and very honored. I always look forward to come to, the BVF, and I actually learn a lot. We are facing the same challenge, which is exponential speed of change, be it geopolitical, technology, sustainability issues, all kind of disruptive change around us. CP Group is a company which is an agro-based, and we diversify into retail, distributions, and telecom medias, and invest in some others, few others major industries. We have over 350,000 employees. And our business extended to other suppliers, business partners, and including farmers, millions of farmers. Again, we have to look at things start things from the inside out, and it's most of the time start from the leaders, start from the visions and goals that need to be adapted and changed. The different measurements like KPIs need to be communicated. Abilities. If we're looking at solving a complex problem, most of the time we have to come back to a very basic things, and that is, looking at ourselves as a family. So how do you want to raise your children? Whether or not you want to raise them with love and compassion and be able to, give them warmth, or you want to teach our children in other ways. A company is the same. If we are able to allow and empower them and teach them and give them the new tools and allow them to also learn the new skills such as digital literacies. New generations actually joining our companies all the time. They also help shape the company. So I believe that empowerment, to the people while they are facing the market, which actually drive the change, that's the best thing for the companies to adapt and evolve. So again, basic things is just going back to the inside-out practice, looking at the employees as your family, looking at your suppliers and partners as the extended families, all the way down to the consumers as well. So leading the change and being the example is probably very important. Collaborations between the public and private sectors, and the evolutions or the reform of our educational system would probably be a very key.
Thank you very much. Charles, just closing with your reflections on this meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great to be here. I think throughout the conference, I'm sure there are going to be a few vocabularies that we keep hearing. We're going to keep hearing of China, US, trade, conflict, disruptions, technology, and this is all, about either the US or China. But in the end, I think increasingly we're going to realize that the biggest disruption over the last 2 decades is China and technology. And combining China and technology, we are seeing a disruption on a scale that we have never seen before. And this is no longer really just a simple conflict between US and China or conflict between socialism or capitalism. It's a lot more beyond that now. I think today we're really looking at potentially 2 operating systems on a global scale that are trying to find a way to talk to each other. On the one hand, you have an Eastern model where politically we are still a top-down elitist, But on the economy, on the technology side, particularly technology has pretty much flattened the entire economy. So as a result, we are a flat economic structure in China with largely a C2C a culture prevailing. On the other hand, in the West, you still have very much a political flat ground, essentially popular representative democracy and popular election and popular social media, and creating a flat social and political society. But on the other hand, economy is still dominated by a pyramid of top-down elitists. And so we're now in the new era is to look at whether or not that technology-flattened economic background is going to ultimately change China politically, or we're going to look at that technologically flattened America, whether Europe, whether that is ultimately going to change its economic distribution system. So these two operating systems are so different now that it's increasingly very difficult for them to talk, and it's increasingly challenging for them to connect. I think I come from Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a small place, but we want to play bigger roles. We want to help these two operating systems to talk, to connect, and to translate. We want to translate the voltages. We want to connect the round pipes with the square pipes. We want to make sure that in this world where we inevitably are living in two operating systems, the two operating systems can still talk, and hopefully partially through Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We haven't got a huge amount of time, but can I just get a sense in the room of who has a question and who would like to put one to our co-chairs? So if you've got a question, please pop your hand up. Okay, and we have a microphone. We will get to you. We'll try and take maybe the folks on the front row. Can you make it one question, please? Can you tell us who you are and where you're from as well?
Hi, I'm with Phoenix. I have a question for Mr. Li. So 5G is a very popular topic right now. How would you expect 5G network coverage to transform financial industry, or to be more specific, to transform Hong Kong Stock Exchange?
That's a great question for Mr. Li, but we'd like also to bring in our other panelists. So can I just ask for questions from these folks too?
Yeah, thank you. I work for CRI, and my question is for Enass. Okay. How do you evaluate the innovation environment and policies and achievements in China? So if China wants to make a more sustainable economy, so what can we learn from UK and US, and how can the companies, they can work together? Thank you.
Okay, and
hello, Mr. Besenbacher. I'm from National Business Daily, and in the previous interview, you said that your cooperation with China can be started dated back to 1990s. And could you detail background information about the cooperation at that time? And when you first came to China, and this country is in the early stage of reform and opening arms, and has your understanding of China or impression has changed, and how? Thank you.
That's a great series of questions, and I'm just going to, I think we've probably got time to very quickly whiz them past all of our panelists, because I think each of them probably has something to say about what China can learn from their experiences in terms of innovation, or what China may want to bring to the table from its experiences. Perhaps some comments on 5G infrastructure. And also for those of you who've been coming for a longer time to China, perhaps what your experience of the change that you've seen is. So perhaps, Flemming, we can just start with you. You're no stranger to the PRC. What's been your experience of the changes you've seen, and what's impressed you?
Well, let me face it both from the science point of view and from the business point of view. I've come to China for nearly 30 years, and in my previous life, I was professor of nanoscience. I've had a very close collaboration with many Chinese universities, and acted today as member of the Chinese Academy of Science and being an academician. I must say, sort of the development of China within science and innovation and entrepreneurship is just astonishing. And I think that reflects just the fact that China has been investing in R&D for many years, and now you're starting to see the results, and China being leaders in many areas, like, for example, AI. So that's really great, and see many, many young Chinese entrepreneurs coming out from some of the great universities, starting their own companies now, and that's really pleasing to see. From the business point of view, I think China is a fantastic country here. At Carlsberg, we have 27 breweries here, and this is certainly one growth area here. And I see a lot of growth opportunities still going forward in China.
Great stuff. Enass, anything that from your side on things you think that that outside experience can bring on innovation and sustainability to China?
I myself spent some time in Tsinghua University at some point, and I just want to second the message of my fellow co-chair. It's really impressive the direction that China is moving in terms of adopting more technologies and innovation on the sustainability front, specifically. I think there are two approaches that can be done here. One is the top-down, the policies that government could take, and investments in more sustainable products, but also the bottom-up approach, like the role of government in encouraging the 1.4 billion people in China to become socially more responsible and follow sustainable behavior in consumption. And this is something that Europe has started and many other continents, and I think China will have a big role to play in that.
Great. So, Charles, can I just turn to you on the 5G question on its transformation impact on financial markets?
Yeah, I don't think 5G itself necessarily is the defining moment for the financial services. The financial services innovation and a global development challenge is really an issue where China is physically, innovation has tremendously transformed China's financial system by essentially disintermediating the entire system to make it into a C2C flat system. That physically tremendously improved regulatory efficiency and distribution efficiency, but unfortunately has also deprived the system of the chemical enrichment that risk manage and properly develop product development. Where in the Western model, it's still heavily intermediated. So there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of ideas, a lot of layered risk management, but on the other hand, massive inefficiency in terms of distribution. How to bring the two systems to actually be able to learn from each other and potentially cross-fertilizing, that would be the challenge.
Minister, just to pick up on the innovation question, UAE is known for its interest and championing of innovation. Are there things you're looking to share from your experience and also things you're looking to learn here in China?
Absolutely. I think first, to go back to your question about 5G, I come from a telecom background. So for me, I can never overstate the importance of technology. It's the backbone of any economy. When it comes to the UAE, we may have been latecomers to education, to formal education. So we had to catalyze the educational system and to encourage the students to become more innovative, more entrepreneurship. One thing we did was we actually announced a year of innovation, just to get that culture setting where all universities and companies were working together in innovative solutions in various different sectors. And then thereafter, we have a month every year to continue that momentum. So for us, the quick shift from basic education to becoming innovative happened quickly because the government had a bigger role, and it was most about empowering the people. It's about creating a momentum, branding the country as innovative, and then that trickles down through the whole system, the whole economy. We do, and within the region, we're one of the first countries to launch 5G, previously 4G, so the whole country has moved to become more innovative. And it has always been picked over the past 7 or 8 years as the #1 destination for young people within the MENA region to live and work at. And that's predominantly driven by innovation and technology. Just want to check in on our other co-chairs and see if they want to come in on those points.
Well, I would like to comment maybe a bit on technology innovation. There's 3 things that I think is necessary, right, to do that, be in China or anywhere else. I think the first one is that you have to have real world problems to solve, right? It cannot be innovation for the sake of innovation, right? And I think that's one of the benefits, I think, working in China. I'm Singaporean. I studied and worked in the States. I worked in 10 different countries in Asia in the past 6 years in China. And one of the unique things about here is there's no lack of problems to solve. I think the second thing that you need to have is then people, right? I think Flemming and then many others talked about people. And it's just astonishing the amount of talents and different discipline people. 10 years ago, we have 3,000 developers. Today, we have 30,000 developers, 99,000 technology. You can see it's exponential. It's not linear. You need people with different disciplines working together. I think that's one of the challenges. And then thirdly is then the market. I mean, no innovation is for free. Innovation takes a lot of time, investments, sustain many years to do it. And if you don't have a big enough market to be able to monetize some of that, I mean, you're not going to encourage the innovation, right? And I think these three factors are very important for technology innovation in any markets. And China is one of the countries, I think, that have both three elements. So that makes it a very exciting market.
Just looking down, Super China.
Can I add on to the 5G? 5G is, again, another technology. You know, I'm also in the telecom business. So you will see 6G and you will see 7G coming. You know, it's actually increasing the ability to transfer data and all that. But at the end of the day, it's about the content, about the applications. So how those content and application have helped uplift the education, for example, you know, the economy, for example, and be able to also have a good governance, or, you know, how we actually use the technology is very important. So again, going back to the educations, going back to China as a model, whereby I think China is probably now one of the most advanced country in the world in terms of moving toward AI, you know, data analytics. You have abundance of data. 5G will help enhance that. And then, you know, the learning that you will have from utilizing those data, the learning from how you developed your younger generations, I think that's something that would be so valuable for the world to learn.
Thank you. I just want to ask Alain and Chairman Ning if they've anything they'd like to close with, because I'm looking at my watch and seeing that I've committed the great Swiss sin of running over time. I apologize. Gentlemen, anything you'd like to just...
No, I think there is always another side on everything. And on innovation, technology, and so on, we should not forget that a lot of youngsters are not part of this movement. It is in China. I think 8.2 million young people are not really in education and so on. So we have to solve this. But also in a lot of other countries in the world, the youth unemployment is at a double rate than the regular unemployment figures. It can be in the US, it can be in Europe. Everywhere you see that the youth unemployment is a challenge, and especially with the acceleration of the technology. So I didn't mention that in my introduction, but part of the solution and the key recipe is what's called the vocational training. And what is the vocational training? It's a way to make sure that the youngsters are getting the skills, the capabilities that are currently in need by the business. And one of the movements we are pushing everywhere in the world, including, by the way, in China, is this apprenticeship model developed in countries like Germany, like Switzerland, Austria, where you see that the youth unemployment is extremely low because the education system is really adapted to the needs of the society and the business.
Brilliant. Chairman, last word to you.
Me? Yes. I think, like it or not, China started being a low-cost labor manufacturing base, then being a market, then being a sort of environmentally, affected country, and now China talking about technology. I'm sure you will see. I'm sure in the next decade you'll see more and more technology from China. I mean, the momentum is very strong today. Thank you.
Thanks to all our co-chairs. Thanks to all of you. I hope you have a successful and fully packed meeting, and there'll be opportunities to catch up with all of them, I know, one-to-one later on. Thank you.